Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we are back again with another Alliance War video, and this time it's a quite special one because it's the first war of season 17. So we're matched up with this alliance that I'm not even going to try and pronounce it because unfortunately I'm not familiar with this alphabet in particular. But yeah, so either way, I'm starting out in path 4, and on path 4 I'm only having to deal with this initial node because the next node is Killmonger and I have a alliance mate can take care of it with Omega Red. So here I didn't really bring in like a perfect counter here, and my idea was just to bring in Nick Fury and wing it. Now before we get too much into the alliance war, it was actually awesome war. I enjoyed it. There were several cool fights, and it definitely reminded me of Power of Magic, and I believe that Magic is gonna make a quite strong comeback, especially whilst the flow node is gonna be so dominant. So we're gonna see several Magic fights, and yeah, I definitely enjoyed them. So first and foremost, this fight is not gonna be the best fight I have ever done. The idea is just to deal as much damage with Nick Fury, utilize the fact that he has a lot of bleed damage, utilize the fact that he can shrug off debuffs whenever he manages to knock opponent down. So that's also something to keep in mind. I will mess up quite a few times at some point, but thanks to the boosts, thanks to the fact that my Nick Fury is like rank 3 and all the other cool stuff Nick Fury has going on for him, I will manage to kind of escape this fight relatively well. At this point, it's not looking well. I have 2 debuffs on me. I'm getting hit in the face because of the unstoppables. I'm not playing the best, but still, any damage counts, and as we can see, he's ticking down bit by bit, and another parry and a hit, and he goes down. So I know I didn't play this fight perfect, but at the same time, I was kind of confident enough in Nick Fury's abilities to deal with it, and I figured it will be quite alright. It would be quite embarrassing if I started the war season and the war on the first node dying, so I'm glad that didn't happen. So now, already next morning, my alliance mates have cleared up the rest of the bit here initially, but they have left me this Mr. Sinister, who's like a joint node. Now, Mr. Sinister is a control character, therefore he is affected by flow global node, so I want to be kind of careful, especially initially whilst I'm attacking him. Now, later on, it should be quite a bit easier, just because if I have my infection up, I will be able to drain quite a bit of his power, and that will definitely help me a lot. I obviously have to keep an eye on that brute force timer, which is also tricky. Here you can see that flow global is giving him some power gain as well, but I can largely disable them by stunning Mr. Sinister as well, and at this point he has kind of squeezed me in corner, but I'm not too uncomfortable being there, and all in all, this fight has definitely gone quite well. You can see that Mr. Sinister is already halfway down. I'm still at 90-something% health. So all of that is pretty much fine and dandy. No major mistakes made here. One thing that I noticed kind of like by experience, due to these unstoppable timers and the length of Warlock's level 2 animation, you're not able to really safely use that level 2 of Warlock because by the time the animation expires, he has already pretty much gone unstoppable, and then that will mean that you end up getting smacked in the face as soon as the level 2 is over. So I know that I need to keep away from my level 2s this time. Yeah, I learned by experience, I guess. So I opted for level 3 instead, got a bit of heal back, and obviously did some damage, and now quickly finished out the fight. And yeah, so we are ready to move on to the next section. But before I jump to the next section, I noticed that there is a Nova minibus, and I figured I'm gonna try out my magic a bit, which I didn't really have to. Nobody really instructed or asked me to take that node, but I just saw that Nova is open. I have magic. I thought it would be a quite good matchup, and I figured I'll kind of get my magic warmed up. Now, this node has aggression fury, so obviously I do need to be conscious of that, and obviously Nova has auto block, so I also need to be conscious of the fact that he can auto block me, but hopefully I will not get him to the charge count where he can actually parry me. So that's also kind of like very important. Obviously Nova is not the easiest champion to parry because his medium hits are projectiles, so they do not make contact, and that means that I kind of need to re-parry or block bait heavy attacks, which is kind of what I'm doing with magic, especially because of the limbo. I'm also occasionally able to mitigate the block damage here. And now once I have him in corner, it's kind of like a relatively easy time. I do not want to get carried away with my dashback intercepts here initially, and I just want to spam my level 2s. I want to kind of like deal as much damage in corner as I can. Actually, I do have Warlock's energy as well, which increases Magik's attack whilst she's in limbo, so that's also kind of helpful. And now another level 2, couple crits there, and the fight is over. So I didn't play it perfectly, I kind of played it quite safe, but I am overall quite happy and excited to bring Magik back to Alliance War. And now I am putting on some smaller boost once again to clear down my section 2 and some of the middle nodes before I get to deal with the main boss. That's right, there's going to be some main boss action here as well using Magik against Mojo. That fight is going to be quite interesting. But so initially I need to deal with Diablo. Now Diablo is a control character, so I have to keep that in mind, but overall he's not the hardest champion to play up against. Additionally, this person in particular had placed his defense with Suicide Masteries, and largely he did it because he was also placing Elsa Bloodstone, and obviously, as we all know, if Elsa Bloodstone is placed on defense with Suicides, you're basically forced to use a mutant champion, or if you get caught by surprise, you're just going to lose a whole lot of health just because you entered that fight. So yeah, they did utilize that tactic and had this guy placed as many kind of like suicide friendly characters. But obviously, since Warlock can shut down the healing and the recoil and all that, the fight was extremely easy. Nothing to stress out here at all. I was like super pleasantly surprised for the suicides. Now, next fight against Dr. Voodoo is going to be a bit more messy, but again, Voodoo is once again a control character, and here he also will have ability to go unblockable. Now, for the most part, I'm going to play around those abilities relatively well. Obviously, initially, what I want to do is I want to start the fight with a couple of parries to make sure that I can power drain and actually kind of like combat the flow if I have to. The one annoying thing that you will notice in this case, it's annoying that that unblockable buff itself is also a buff, and combined with like Voodoo's healing, it significantly shortened the duration of my infection. So I kind of need to also try and be as careful as I can when I'm applying these infections, because I want to make sure that he doesn't really have buffs active. But at the same point, here on out, the fight's going pretty much well enough. Now he has unblockable that I need to keep an eye out for. I waited out the limited immunity buff, but here obviously I did make a mistake, so I ate a combo, unfortunately, but now I got to my level 2, which is fine enough. He drops his level 1, I'm consistently still draining his power, so there's not too big of worry of that power flood. Now I know that I could disable those power gains with a parry, but at the same time the fight's nearly over. Now I end up eating another level 2 like a klutz, but Warlock cannot get critical hits in his face unless his armor is broken, so that kind of like still didn't get me overly worried. I knew that I'm gonna survive that level 2 in particular, because yeah, it couldn't have crit possibly. So now obviously here we are already enjoying the benefits of level 4 Alliance War health potion, which heals you for quite significantly larger amount, but obviously is only available for units, so that makes me think this war season is probably going to be quite expensive. Also, it's so cheeky that those Alliance War boosts last for 6 hours, so they are vastly superior for the needs of Alliance War, but don't work on anything else. But you know, new rules, I guess, new management, I don't know. I am still not really on board with that whole division of Alliance Quest and Alliance War, I guess. But yeah, now we are up against the Safeguard Domino, and this fight is not too bad with the Warlock. Obviously, Domino is not a control champion, so she doesn't benefit from the flow node, and even if she did, I don't think it would kind of like matter too much if I'm using Warlock. Now, I'm spamming my heavy attacks for quite a bit as well. I know that Domino has a 50% to shrug them off, but there is another reason to spam the heavy attacks. Obviously, number one is because it's damage over time effect, and I can bypass Safeguard with it. But the second reason is because it kind of lets me have a debuff on Domino, and I know that she's consistently going to be losing power thanks to that, because Warlock Obviously, it drains power when opponents try to heal, even if it's via willpower. And if I have debuff active, that kind of like Warlock's power drain is activated. So it's quite important that you are able to kind of like consistently land debuffs on your opponents if you want to drain a lot of power. And that is exactly what bleed does here, because it triggers willpower, Domino tries to heal, and I get my power gain. Obviously there's still the level 2 with the armor breaks and all that other good stuff that's also helpful, just like parries are, but that bleed just kind of like extends the usefulness of the power drain if it sticks, obviously. So at the same point, slowly but surely, this fight has lasted a while, largely due to safeguard, but at the same time, if I manage to chip down the Domino to 10%, I just need to finish this fight out carefully. I have done like the legwork in this fight, just don't make a silly mistake now and we're gonna be fine. And yeah, so another combo and the Domino goes down. And now next up, my alliance asked me to deal with this Heimdall mini-boss, and it's actually quite a tricky fight. And reason why it's tricky is because obviously he is debuff immune, so you can't power lock him and you can't stun him to disable the flow. Now Heimdall himself is a control character, so he's going to be gaining power gain from flow. I cannot disable these passive debuffs, I can't nullify them, I can't do anything to them because he's also stun immune, and only way to kind of like get rid of them is to stun the opponent. Additionally, I cannot place a long-lasting power lock buff. So the only real option is kind of like very, very heavy power drain, or obviously a champion that does not crit at all whatsoever. So if I had Quake, I'd be quite happy with the matter of circumstance. I just used Quake in this situation, but I didn't have Quake with me. And I decided to go in with Magic and just try and spam my level 2s back to back as much as possible. And I know that I can't power lock the guy, but that power drain on level 2 is quite impressive as well. And hopefully I'm not going to be like hitting and or critting that much. And my plan is to kind of like block a lot, be very careful with that true strike buff that he has active here. I ideally wanted to kind of like counter with heavy attack, but I chose a special attack because even when, if he would auto block the special attack, I still wouldn't get parry stand. And that was kind of the plan, just stick to my wall and spam as many level 2s as I can, and hopefully kind of like that will bring the fight in. Unfortunately, at some point there, I seem to have let go of my block, so I did get hit and I did get that dismay damage on me as well. Luckily, obviously, Limbo is there to save me. And now at this point, you can see that it's kind of like a struggle in between Magic's power drain and power gain from flow. And this is kind of like an excellent fight where you can see exactly how effective and how fast and how deadly that power gain is. And this is just like one example of why flow is an overpowered global node. But here basically I kind of stuck to the strategy of blocking all the time and trying to block bait the heavy attacks. And as I did, I dropped my level 2s, and thanks to all the Mystic Power boost, I could do it continuously, and I managed to get through the fight. So it was one of those fights that kind of gets your heart racing a bit, but at the same time I did find it interesting. But additionally, I also find the idea of flow global node in war absolutely broken, because there are many fights that can be engineered this way that it's an absolute nightmare to deal with. And now it's the boss time. Now boss time again is one of those guys he's stun immune, so there's no way for me to disable the power gain. So Mojo is a control character, and yeah, so it's going to make for a very interesting fight. And Magic's actually the best option as far as I'm concerned for Mojo boss. Unfortunately, as we go in this fight, I will come up narrowly very short. I will end up dying whilst the boss is going to be on like 4k or something like that, and that's going to be due to my own mistake. Well, first and foremost, I think I will mess up somewhere during this fight and get hit once, because I did disable my dexterity, because I did not want to trigger it by any chance, by any reason, because that would give Mojo basically another buff to place a degen on me. And the whole idea is if you don't get any buffs, you hardly have anything to worry about against Mojo. And yeah, so Here is the moment where I got smacked, but luckily, thanks to the limbo, I recovered most of the health. But unfortunately, due to the liquid courage, I'm also losing health consistently. And that is the biggest mistake that I made. I should not have went in with full suicide masteries. I should have went in with maxed out recoil instead of 1 point in recoil. And then I should have used just the bleed suicide mastery, because then I would actually have access to quite a bit of heal, and that would help me finish out this fight much more comfortably. And I still could have soloed it the way I went in. I will simply make kind of a judgment error. I'm going to get a bit afraid of my diminishing health pool. As you can see here, I'm only at 30%. He's at 30% as well. And it's only been like minute and 20 seconds in the fight. Now, because of that degen that I was getting, I got a bit afraid, and my idea was to kind of push to level 3 for one big hit finish. I should have kept using my level 2 for one more time, and I could have won the fight. Unfortunately, this level 3 will nearly finish off this Mojo, but not quite, and then he's immediately going to retaliate with the special 3. But if anything, this fight definitely showcases that MAGIK can definitely relatively easily solo this Mojo. Unfortunately, I just lacked in execution a bit, and I'm confident I can do it again if I get the chance. But at the same time, I bring great shame to my family for failing this fight. As you can see, the 2% over there is just super annoying. And yeah, I'm just going to quickly bounce in with Nick Fury. I'm going to hit him once, and the war's going to be over. And the boss is gonna go down. So either way, that will do for today's video. This is literally kind of it. We did end up winning the war. Well, we're about to win the war. The war is still technically not over, but either way, if you like the video, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I will catch you guys soon. See ya.